But let's begin with the government's announcement today that it will table legislation for a one-time payment of up to $600 for people with disabilities. This is the second time it has tried to get parliamentary approval for the program. You'll remember that earlier in June, a political standoff prevented the bill from being passed, leaving people with disabilities struggling with increased costs and unsure about what happens next. Carla Qualtrough is the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion, and she joins me now. Minister, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So it's been about a month since the first attempt to get legislation passed on disability payments. Have you got the support you need to get it through this time?
Well, first of all, we've taken that month not only to build support, working closely with the opposition parties, working with the disability communities, but we actually made it better. We made it broader. So we are actually going to deliver the payment to more people who have a disability in this country, which is great news.
So how have you broadened the criteria? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, the benefit was going to be given to anyone with a disability who qualifies for the disability tax credit. And now it's going to go to that pool of Canadians, but in addition to anyone who's on the CPP disability, the QPP disability, or receiving disability benefits through Veterans Affairs. So a much broader pool, about 1.2 million to 1.7 million now, plus the opportunity of a 60-day window of application for the DTC. So, quite frankly, it's a tax credit. And a lot of people with disabilities don't make enough income to make it worth their while to even apply for the DTC. And we heard that a lot over the past month. So we're giving people 60 days to apply for the DTC. If they're deemed eligible, they too will be able to get this support.
Okay, so the DTC is the disability tax credit. That was always there as a baseline qualification measure for the program, and you've now added the other ones that you've outlined. So this is broadening it to cover and help more people, which I know is something the New Democrats in particular were keen to see last time round. Based on that, have you gotten assurances from the NDP or any other party that this piece of legislation can get passed?
Yeah, I want to thank our Disability Advisory Committee because they were loud and clear wanting it broader as well. And absolutely, the NDP have been very collaborative in this. The legislation that we've released in draft today has the wage subsidy component, a disability component, and a justice component. So, my part of the world, which is the disability piece, I think it's on track. And, we had such great support for the Accessible Canada Act. And I think we've managed to reharness that energy and really put aside partisanship for the purposes of disability.
So I just want to be clear, we've also seen some changes in the wage subsidy from your colleague, the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau. Are all of these going to be bundled together as a single piece of legislation or done one by one so we don't run into what happened last time?
So it is a single piece, as I understand it. It was released publicly today. It was shared with the opposition parties last evening. We also gave them technical briefings on the various elements of it. And I think, and I'm not the legislative expert, but my understanding is the next step is for parties to agree as much as we can, figure out how quickly we can get this piece of law and legislation in front of the House.
Okay, so they're still subject to parliamentary negotiations, but one of the things you mentioned is that people who don't already qualify for the disability tax credit, they've got a 60-day window where they can apply and try to qualify so they can sign up for this. That's going to require medical certification. Medical professionals are going to need to be involved in that process. Given that it's a pandemic and given that things aren't quite working as they should, is that 60-day window enough? Are you sure that's enough?
Well, that's what I'm committed to revisiting that if it doesn't turn out to be. My very frank assessment here is this pandemic has exposed yet another crack in our systems. We don't have an easy way as the federal government to deliver directly to people, to citizens with disabilities like we would seniors through OAS or even families or children through the Canada Child Benefit. It's been really tough, and using a tax credit as the way to get to citizens is not ideal, and it's actually really it's long overdue, and I think you'll see a legacy come out of this pandemic of us fundamentally changing disability policy. It's rooted in tax policy right now, and that's just not the way to go.
In this particular process, so in the short term of the need to apply for this, if somebody needs help applying to get the disability tax credit, will there be supports in the system to help that person?
Well, absolutely. And that's my commitment, as I said in the announcement today, and I'll reiterate it today for your listeners, is that we want to work really closely with the disability community to get as many people signed up, whatever that takes, whether it's funding to organizations or clinics or working with members of parliament. Quite frankly, we've always wanted a reason for people to get people into the system, because we need to get to people. And the broader we can make this list, first of all, more people can get the $600. But in the long term, as we ameliorate our systems and our programs, we'll have more people we can directly reach out to and support.
Okay, I want to switch topics a little bit here, and I want to talk about the ongoing controversy about the We charity, which I know is not necessarily the favorite topic of cabinet ministers, but one we have to ask about. And I want to talk about the revelations from the committee that met yesterday, and in particular, a timeline. So I want to put this graphic on the screen if we can. That shows that on April 19th, the Senior Assistant Deputy Minister Rachel Wernick reached out to the We charity about the student grant program. And before that, we found out that We had sent government officials a proposal for a different social entrepreneurship initiative. And then on April 22nd, the Prime Minister announces the grant program, and also on April 22nd, the We group sent a new proposal that was very much in line with what the Prime Minister had proposed. These revelations came out yesterday. The opposition looks at this and says, the We group, the Kielburgers, they had the inside track here. How does it look to you?
Well, first of all, I'll have to give you the caveat that this isn't my file, and a lot of these timelines I learned about as well in the past couple of days in the past week. But realistically, that doesn't surprise me. We get unsolicited proposals. I can't tell you the hundreds of proposals I get regularly as groups and citizens and companies reach out to try and help us solve our problems. We get it during normal times, and we've been inundated with them during this pandemic. So that timeline doesn't it doesn't surprise me. I personally, as I said, didn't know about it. But no, it doesn't surprise me.
So you don't think there's anything wrong with this? You find this unsurprising? This is normal government business, even though a charity that was giving money to the Trudeau family, the critics say, had the inside track on getting money from the Trudeau government.
Yeah, I'm not sure they had the inside track. And I, in no way am excusing the conflict that was there and for which the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister have apologized. Absolutely a mistake was made. They should have recused themselves. We should have actually been more mindful of it, as well as a broader cabinet, and had that conversation more fulsomely. To me, that's a separate issue and a very important one from how this program got conceived, how we figured out how to deliver it, and then how it was ultimately rolled out. Because those are, if I've learned anything during this pandemic as Minister of Employment, is you can't put an idea on the table in a crisis that you can't deliver. So as the person who announced the measures on April 22nd, after the Prime Minister, I was out there talking about the package, including the student service grant. I was confident that officials had done their homework and knew that there was ways to deliver this, because of course I was concerned about the capacity of the public service. First of all, just how stretched we were, how much we had stressed them, but also we actually aren't in the business of the kind of service delivery that we needed a third-party intermediary to deliver on this.
Mary Dawson was on this show earlier the week, the ethics commissioner. She told Vashi that she thinks the Prime Minister has a blind spot when it comes to ethical conflicts. This is his third ethics probe. Do you agree with that characterization of a blind spot?
I personally don't think so. I think the Prime Minister is very thoughtful in the way he looks at opportunities and the way we consider proposals and ideas at cabinet. But certainly in this case, looking back, he admittedly should have recused himself, and I think he should have too. And I'm glad that he's apologized and taken responsibility. And now, unfortunately, this program has stalled, and we are all rolling up our sleeves to figure out how we deliver for students.
So the Prime Minister has apologized, admitted he made a mistake, so has the Finance Minister. Your boss, Justin Trudeau, he's been invited to testify at the Finance Committee. He says he's thinking about it. In your view, should he testify at the Finance Committee? Well,
I think that solely depends on him. I think that's honestly his call. I think that there are other considerations beyond, perhaps the precedent it will set for other prime ministers moving forward, whether that's appropriate or not. Really, it's his call. I'll support whatever decision he makes, but I do think Canadians are owed a broader explanation, and I'm glad to see a timeline developing. I'm glad to see that we are answering as fulsomely as we can. I'm certainly happy to answer as the minister responsible for broader student employment initiatives. But to be honest, April 15th-ish, mid-April, was such a crazy time. I know 2 weeks after the CERB was launched, we were drafting legislation for the student benefit. We were discussing, additional border measures. We are working on how do we work on a vaccine? What do we do for PPE? Things were flying at us at record speed, and we dropped the ball on this one. We should have put more rigor to our deliberations in terms of who shouldn't have been in the room.
Right. But, and I appreciate all of that because this has been a crazy time for absolutely everybody. But, this involves the Prime Minister. This is the third time, and this involves his family and some not so insignificant sums of money. So I appreciate the concern, of precedent going forward. But given that it is so personal, should he not personally explain himself in a forum of some sort?
Well, and I think publicly this week he has attempted to do that. I think he's done that rather well. He's admitted that, he should have known more about the business his mom was conducted. He talked about bringing his family into this. He knew that they were professional speakers. I feel like he's made that explanation, but if people have more questions, I think we need to figure out a way to get them answered, yes.
Okay, I want to squeeze in one more topic before I let you go. And this has to do with temporary foreign workers and the challenges that we've seen with COVID spreading around in some of these firms. The Migrant Workers Alliance for Change has said that the government is going to announce changes to the program for temporary foreign workers this week or next week. It's Friday. I don't think it's going to happen this week. When are we going to see changes there?
Well, I think, first of all, again, another program that we see really needs an overhaul. The inequality of bargaining power, the vulnerability of our migrant workers, considering in particular the role they play in our food supply is unacceptable. I was a human rights lawyer before coming into politics, and I think it's long overdue that we balance more the power between employer and employees. It undermines the good work that many employers are doing, and it puts migrant workers in these awful positions. Next week is what I can tell you. We are working very closely, the Minister of Immigration and I, to not only think about what this program could look like in the future, but immediately, what are the things we can do to help with some of those power imbalances? Can we give migrant workers different employment options? Right now, they're pretty much tied to the employer that they come in with. So there's not a lot of options if you don't feel safe, and that's unacceptable. So lots on our plates on this file, and we're very seized with it. And we think that that Canadians will be happy with the way we're going to choose to move forward on this.
The groups who advocate for these people want permanent residency. Will that happen?
That is something that is definitely in discussion. I'll leave that to the Minister of Immigration to give more details about, but it's one way that has long been proposed as a way to help with this power imbalance that I'm talking about. My focus is more on workers' rights, making sure work conditions are safe, that people know. Part of this is people don't have the information. For example, temporary foreign workers have access to CERB. They actually do qualify for CERB, but many people don't know that. So we need to do a better job of our messaging and communication so people know their options and their rights.
Okay. Carla Qualtrough, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Take care, Dave.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.